In August of 2011, LA poets Georgia Jones Davis and Hilda Weiss threw a double book launching party at Diesel, a bookstore in Brentwood. Georgia's Blue Poodle was released by Finishing Line Press, and so was Hilda's Optimism About Trees. This Poetry.LA video features Georgia's reading. You can watch Hilda's reading on a separate video at www.poetry.la.
Part of the exercise, I think, in writing these poems was dealing with the demons that we all have and just putting them out there. So here we go. Put me away. Put me away in one of those places. Do what you are going to do. You have taken me apart like a Mingala experiment. I am deboned, but not declawed. From the beginning, you emptied my life. Now you empty my house, one chair, one table, one tooth at a time. You take everything, gold rings, the shoemaker, France. My childhood was gassed, not my body. What can you stupid American, ever know of such things? You are the same shit as the Germans. You are the Zyklon B I thought I escaped. On my oxygen leash, you leave me no choice but to treat me like a dog, about where I'm going to live like a dog. I gave birth to you, but what I wanted was a mirror. What I wanted was the roller skating girl I was when I was taken away from me. I will tell them that the blood in the cord that bound us, dried black as the milk I refused you, was white. I will tell them I only gained 13 pounds with you. I barely gave birth to you at all. But I'm here, and so are you. Powerful lady. And while we're traveling through Eastern Europe, I will read a short poem called Emily at Auschwitz, if I can find it. Emily is here in the bright red skirt. She took a journey to Poland while a student in Hungary and told me about her experience. And I basically just took dictation from her. Emily at Auschwitz. She wore the thin leather boots she bought in Haight-Ashbury. On the ride back to Krakow, a disturbance crept up on her, a disturbance she could not recognize. Joseph, her great-grandfather, arrived in one of the last transports, never left. Does blood murmur to its own through ash that still dirties the air? Bone whisper to its own through dust piled beneath the soul? In this place where the dead survive, did Joseph's fire-digested eyes know Emily on sight, the daughter of his daughter's daughter, a link in the dying chain, miraculously alive? I'm going to read a poem that I like reading this. It's kind of wicked and bad. I don't think any poetry lover in this room would be writing if we all hadn't read Anne Sexton at one point or another. This is called Listening to Anne Sexton. Her voice, a loaded gun, teenage memory of wanting to overdose, death aria of Butterfly. I too want to live on Black Oak Road, use a coffin for a desk, speak in a cigarette voice from below the belly, the cave of muscle, from ovaries with eggs that only want to fertilize themselves. Keep knives hidden, lights on, doors locked. Her voice, mean as money, a lullaby for anyone half in love with death. For vampires snug in their satin beds when the sky runs red at sunrise. I too want to drown like an unwanted kitten everything I write, and when it gasps, pause frantically, swallows water in a tiny and magnificent struggle, haul the sack with the cat out of the murk, resuscitate only the sharpest lines, the claws. Enunciate my waterlogged vowels and consonants in the way they used to, and the bow-tied old century. Enunciate like a Boston Brahmin, as if my life depends upon it. Even in January, I am frightened. We have been too fortunate. The sun for us has soared too high. The oak, laurel, the flowering pears on the property always stand lush and green. Late in the day, light gold as Russian tea filters through the leaves, even in January. The afternoon steals behind the hill. Soon it will be time to prepare supper, set the table with dishes white or blue, folded cloth napkins, wine glasses, a bowl of olives. Time to engage in ceremony that slows the weeks, the years, that briefly holds the day in its hand. Missing Don Ho. You remember Don Ho? Yeah, okay. When I was 18, I traveled to Hawaii with a tribe of old and holy women from the Midwest. I wore a tight yellow sheath, tasted papaya for the first time. My roommate slept in curlers, studied Bible before bed. At midnight, I was on the beach, stepping into the heartbreaking breakers that rolled beneath a yellow ukulele moon. Those hot nights in Oahu, how Don Ho filled the churchy, starchy hearts of those sturdy wahinis from the islands of Iowa and Indiana and Illinois with naughty hulas and pineapple dreams. That lingering aloha of Don Ho is what the widowed, moo-mooed bells took home to the deep lakes and the wide rivers, to the corn and the wheat fields of the Sandberg Prairie that rolls like an ocean beneath the yellow ukulele moon. How much time are we? Two more? Okay. Childhood memory is just, I suppose, one of the most obvious sources of poems. And this came out of an event that happened. I was very small, and it just kept playing and playing in my head for years, and finally it came together. It's called The Visitors. 3 horses, 2 roans and a ghostly gray, muscle across our lawn at the first light of morning. Stop in the suburban street as if their breath clouds widen in cold at knives. Fathers in buzz cuts shout across driveways. We kids wake to urgent voices, to commotion, run outside, followed by sleepy Medusa mothers in pink rollers. People stand frozen, electrified by this vision, something out of the dead time when pathways in the tall grasses were no wider than flanks. 3 horses in the cul-de-sac. Bart and Scott's hunter dad orders a posse of neighbors with yells and prods, golf clubs, the butts of rifles. They herd the horses into a carport, blocked them with a red and white Rambler. Bart and Scott once drew me into their garage to show off what it was their dad brought home from the woods. In the dark, I edged up against an object, bristly, suspended, the floor sticky. When they flicked on the light, I was face to face with a bruise-eyed buck, shot and hung by its hocks, the head and small antlers swinging downward. Fear for the visitors surged through me until a Tasuke man in a white pickup appears, its headlights blinding as a spirit's eyes. He carries blankets, rope, and reins, and in a monotone chants the strange names of what he has come to seek. I'm going to end with the rabbi wore sweats. His yogic stance gave him away as he nursed a cappuccino at Coffee Junction. We talked about Boston and Elizabeth Bishop. At yoga, it was as if he was sneaking around Buddha's headquarters like a truant. Still, he wormed his way into my dreams this morning. On Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, I am at a grand hotel on a beach, dressed like a Catholic schoolgirl, like Molly Shannon on Saturday Night Live. A fallen woman because I call myself Unitarian. I'm fallen as a split cherry, no different than a shtetl whore in the glowering eyes of the Orthodox. I go into a grand hotel where a swarm of Hasidic men in their black garb, imperious as bumblebees, surround me, their wide-brimmed beaver hats framing pale, thin, bearded faces, cold as the white porcelain Germans love. On an overcast day in Gdansk, I sense them everywhere, the ghosts of Poland. I hear their singing in the minor keys, Hebrew melodies and lost doorways. Ghosts trail me, flicked off cigarettes, cradled in the gold-ringed fingers of hordes in amber finery, who walk small dogs through archaic streets. A high-cheekbone barbarian hawks taxidermed heads of wild boar in the open-air market, surrounded by brick houses the color of dried blood. Out of tall, graceful windows, gauzy white curtains billow, frail as brides never to be in a Baltic wind. Rain stalls in pregnant summer air. Everywhere ghosts weave threads of cloud through the ice cream eating crowd. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, yes.